I studied with Stella Adler at Carnegie Hall, and she was a really good dramatic teacher. And then I studied with Kurt Conway and Lonnie Chapman, and then I met John Cassavetes. He had a workshop, and I went by, and I'd seen him on television, and he had just opened in a movie with Sidney Poitier and Jack Warden called Edge of the City. And I went by, and John said hello, and I said hi. And Seymour Cassel, and he said, I'm John Cassavetes. I said, I know. I'm here about the free scholarship. He said, where have you been? And they're gone. I said, oh, I didn't know. I just saw it in the paper. He said, no, we got rid of those. Go come in the office. And he sat down and he talked to me for about an hour. And I immediately, in that hour, knew what kind of person he was, because he cared about my life. John? I'm telling the story straight. I'll tell you a funny story. He was more interested in the way I grew up and being in burlesque and he's asking me all these questions, and then after about 45 minutes or an hour, he said, look, I got to go. We're shooting this movie, but my partner, Bert Lane, who is teaching class, so if you want to wait. I said, where are you shooting the movie? He said, here. And I said, well, can I watch? He said, yeah. And I went in, and there were seats, not quite like that, but movie wooden seats, and there were like 5 rows of them, and the set for faces had been built. I mean, shadows. And so I watched for about an hour, and Eric Colmar, the cameraman, every time John would change an angle and go to say, let's shoot it from this way, Eric would unscrew the camera, set it down, take the tripod, take it over there, come back and get the camera. So I just started helping, and I spent the night, and we shot until about 5:30 in the morning. And we went to breakfast. John took everybody to breakfast, and we had a crew of about 4 or 5, I think. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, I've never seen that, I've never seen the way they made movies. It's great, I like it. He said, well, that's the way we do it. And I said, when are you going to do it again? He said, tonight. I said, can I come back? He said, yeah. So I learned everything on shadows. I mean, I learned how to load a magazine in, the bag, just with your hands. And I learned how to thread the camera, how to pull focus, how to operate it. And I learned sound. It was a fun time. It's pure. I'm glad I experienced it. And I'm glad I came in that way and met John when I did. And I knew that was a person that I wanted to know a long time. And it was not as long as I would have liked it to be, because he was great. He was so much fun to be around. He liked the way I acted. And he gave me a lot of freedom. And he felt that actors should have that, and I saw him do it with my mother-in-law, who was in Minnie and Moskowitz, which was the older woman that, if you've seen it, that played Jenna's co-worker at the museum. And I remember setting up the shot, and the sound guy comes over and says to Elsie, who was my mother-in-law, he said, can you speak up a little more? And John said, come here, don't ever tell my actors to speak up. That's why we have rehearsals. You can put a mic here. I like the rhythm of their voice, and I want them to be comfortable. And the same thing with, he was not a stickler for, you got to hit this spot. I mean, if it was a tight close-up, that, you knew it was tight. But he gave actors a lot of freedom to behave, as you do in life. And that's what we wanted to do, was recreate life with fictional stories that John wrote. He wrote some great emotional moments in a lot of his films. And for me, I like to please myself in my performance and the actors I'm working with. But I especially always had my eye on John, because I could tell when he was loving it, and his intensity, the way he would watch you, as if he wasn't operating the camera, he'd be right next to him. he'd bite his hand to keep from laughing at some things that were silly and funny to him. And other times, if you're doing a scene with 3 people and you can see him shooting over their shoulders and stuff, and you see him as you look around, and you can see his intensity with the way he watched the performers. We liked each other a lot. We were both a little crazy in our own ways, and he admired that with me, and as I did with him, because I would sit with him at a restaurant in London, and a couple of producers would go, "John, how you doing? You got a script? What are you selling a movie?" And John, and he would start to tell a story. And I knew he didn't have the script because I knew he was there acting in a movie, and he didn't have it, but he'd make it up on the spot. And the guy said, "Well, that's what you drop a script by. That sounds good," So I knew he was pretty good at making up stories, which I was too. So we just hit it off, and he became an older brother that I never had, and the best friend that I ever had. I didn't know how to play chess, and he said, "Come on, I'll teach you how to play chess." And we played, and he beat me, and they beat me, and let me win one time, and finally said, "I'm not going to play you anymore." And I said, "Why not? We're taking a break. Let's play chess." He said, "You're not good enough." So I went down to the village on the weekends, and I'd play down there with these guys, and I got much better at it. And about 4 or 5 weeks later, I was, let's play a game of chess. And he said, "Well, have you been practicing?" I said, "Well, I played a few games." We play, and I beat him. He said, "Set him up again." We played, and I beat him again. He said, "Where have you been practicing?" I said, "I played a few games down in the village." He said, "Well, let's play again." I said, "No, you better practice a little." But we could do that to each other. It was, I had a craziness that he liked, that he loved about me. And, people say, "Why do you see?" He says, "Because I love him. He's great." And I would do anything for John. He was so happy when people, would get awards or for them. And he didn't go to the Academy Awards for Faces. He let Lynn Collin and I go. And I said, "You got to come." He said, I'm going to New York." It was a Thursday. He said, "I'll be back Sunday. You pick me up." And I called him Saturday. I said, "What time you get in?" He said, "I got a meeting Monday." He said, "John, you're nominated for writing a screenplay. You've got to come." He said, "No, you and Lynn go." But that he could get publicity anytime he wanted. He was a star, and he knew all, and he was a schmoozer. And if you know what that means, he could talk to anybody at any time about anything and make it up. And I watched him do it many, many times. But he wanted to give it to his actors. And he was Greek, and he was superstitious. And he would never go to Venice because I went with Shadows. And since we won the Premio della Critica, the prize of the critics, and I call him in California. He said, "See, you back? Come on over." I said, "John, I'm in Venice." I said, "Well, what? Oh, God, did we win anything?" I said, "Yeah, we won prize of the critics." He said, "What did we get?" And I said, "We got a silver trophy." He said, "How big is it?" I said, "It's about 15 inches tall, 16 inches." And he said, "Don't lose it." So I put it in the TWA bag and carried it everywhere with me, and brought it back to him. But when we went to, the point I'm making is that when we went with Faces, and they closed down Cannes that year, but Venice, they couldn't do that, and we won 5 awards, and John's in Rome doing a movie, Machine Gun McCain or something, for the money, and with Peter Falk, and so he said, I said, "You got to come up there, and dude, we're going to win some awards, and you got to come up." And he said, "I can't." I said, "What do you mean? It's a weekend. You could come up, it's 30 minutes away, an hour at the most." He said, "No, you and I'll get this stuff if we win anything." The last film we did, he wasn't going to do the part. Voight was going to do it, and then Voight backed out. And I'm glad, because John got to do that, and that was his goodbye, I said, well, listen, he wouldn't have a liver transplant because his good friend was Chayefsky, and he wrote Hospital, and he didn't trust doctors, even the ones he went with. And they had told him when he was 33 or something. He called me and he said, "See, come on over." And I'm at Cedars. I said, well, why are you in Cedars? You were in Mexico. He said, I got this hepatitis. I got it from the water down there. And I said, we bring a couple of cheeseburgers. So I said, well, is it contagious? He said, no. So I come over with the cheeseburgers and I give him one, and he's lying in the bed, and I go to eat the other one. He said, no, don't eat that. I said, what are you talking about? He said, did you get hepatitis? I said, you told me it wasn't contagious. He said, well, no, not in the atmosphere, but the food, I said, well, if you wanted 2 cheeseburgers, why didn't you ask me for that? I'm hungry, and I ate it. But they told him that he couldn't smoke or drink like he used to. Well, John was, he grew up in the 50s, and everybody smoked. In every movie they smoked, and that's what he did, and he drank. And he didn't pay attention, I mean, he kept doing what he did. And then when they found out that his liver was really infected, and he wanted to do a transplant, and he wouldn't do that. It was a big loss. It was a loss for me personally, Jenna, I know, and his children. But I mean, it was the brother I never had, and he was just a great, great person.